Hello and welcome to Topic Masters, where we talk movies, TV, and video games. My name is Mike.
This is Ty.
Today's topic is why all the high-budget movie hate.
I think we've narrowed it down to a three-pronged problem. Audience expectations or hype, marketing, and studio involvement as a whole. So Mike, I want you to do something very specific for me. I want you to jump into your mind, make a little mental DeLorean like in Back to the Future, and go back to a year when you were but a wee lad of, 27, 28 years old?
Oh, yes.
Not the masculine piece of man meat that's sitting before me 1 year older. Think about the slate of movies that were projected to come out in 2016, and what did you feel?
Well, Ty, I felt extremely hyped. So I always look back in Facebook in particularly, and you'd see a bunch of those memes of, this is what's coming out in 2016. You know, movies like X-Men Apocalypse, you had a Ghostbusters reboot, you got Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad, Independence Day,
Resurgence, but I know it caused you to regurgitate.
Yep, a little bit in my mouth. Looking at these movies, I was over the board hyped, and maybe being overhyped has its issues.
I'd say that plays a pretty big role in it. The amount of hype and expectations you had for a movie like Warcraft were drastically different than mine because I've played a little bit of World of Warcraft. I know of it. I'm more of a Hearthstone fan myself. I told you if that was in the movie, I would have definitely seen it with you because that is some must-see movie material right there. But for you, you're going to be more hypercritical about something that you're excited about than I will. Whenever I do end up seeing it, it might actually be a better movie or more enjoyable movie for me because it's just a movie for me. It's not my childhood like X-Men is or Captain America. You have more of a foundation built on World of Warcraft than I would.
Yeah, it was a real dream come true to know that movie was being made for me, not because of the Warcraft, like the World of Warcraft video games. It was more of just the Warcraft RTSs that I played, and I really got behind the lure, and I even read several books, like standalone books, based off of that universe. So to know that this movie was coming, yeah, my hype was huge. Now, was it a good movie? Yeah, I thought it was a good movie, but I can see how other people would get lost in that universe. But looking at something like Batman v Superman, that is a little bit more universally hyped. Everybody seemed to be really pumped to go see that movie, and critics did not like it. So, Ty, what were your thoughts on the Batman v Superman?
I don't think anything else needs to be said about that movie for the rest of time. I think the major problem, though, that we're kind of touching on is we are partially responsible for setting these expectations for movies so that they actually can never live up to what we imagine they could ever be. For me, X-Men Apocalypse, I loved that whole run in the comic books. I loved it on the animated show also in the 90s. Right when I heard the title for that, my brain exploded. I thought I'd never get a movie like that.
Yeah, I was also really hyped for the X-Men Apocalypse for all the same reasons. Also really loved the 90s run. Big fan of that. But the one thing with their marketing campaign is they did a lot of marketing on this movie. They even showed scenes that weren't even actually in the movie that were supposed to be in the movie as part of their advertisement. You know, like Nightcrawler getting that little brain freeze, you know, stuff like that. And I thought the marketing campaign around it was brilliant.
So you're saying that my expectations for the movie were probably ballooned even more by the marketing campaign for the movie.
Yeah, I really think so, because it seemed like they tried their best to borrow that Deadpool advertisement. They tried to make the advertisement with this movie fun. And then going into this movie, there really wasn't a lot of fun to the movie, in my opinion, other than anything that involves around Quicksilver. So you have a movie that does a great job at marketing, and it was a successful movie in the box office. However, it wasn't really well received. And I guess my question for you, Ty, is do you feel like if you don't have that strong of a marketing campaign that it will affect the way your movie ultimately becomes as its final product?
If anything, it's more how efficient your marketing is, it seems like. But I think a really great example of a movie that tried too hard and was also simultaneously unsuccessful would probably be Suicide Squad. That movie got so many people excited. The first trailer itself was good, but it had more of a serious tone to it. But the second one with Blitzkrieg Bop, and then I think there was another one with a Queen song.
Yep, it became more fun.
Yeah, it looked like it was going to be a much more laid-back, fun movie as opposed to Batman vs. Superman, which it's worth pointing out for people that don't know, it's the same studio. But that brings us to our next point, which is the marketing campaign for Suicide Squad took a pretty sharp turn, I'd say a month or two after Batman vs. Superman bombed. That's in direct relation to the fact that BVS was a steaming POS.
Oh, burn!
How big of a role do you think studios stepping on the toes of the creators of all the different projects has to do with critical backlash?
I think it's a huge piece of it, because when you look at a movie like Suicide Squad and the marketing had Joker front and center, and the Joker was barely in the movie, Ty. And when you market it that way and then you hear that, oh, there's like 20 minutes of the movie cut and all these Joker scenes are gone, what exactly happened there? Who stepped on whose toes?
It's worth pointing out that almost every movie, every TV show usually has reshoots. They're slotted into the budget and into the schedule because there might be some jokes that didn't work with test audiences. The ending might not work. But with a movie like Suicide Squad, there were a bunch of reports saying that they purposely went in, they being the studio, to make the movie a lot more lighthearted and funny as opposed to Batman versus Superman.
So are you thinking, Ty, that they had the Jared Leto's Joker in there, and that maybe it was just too dark of a tone and they wanted to make it happier, more lighthearted, like something like Guardians of the Galaxy?
It seems that way. It's just really discouraging to think about how studios are so quick to kind of rebuild what a movie is on the fly instead of allowing the original architecture of the script to exist without any kind of interference. And I'm really worried that Star Wars Rogue One is going to suffer that same fate, which is weird because Disney has been really great in terms of being hands-off and not trying to micromanage their smaller studios like Pixar or Marvel, but it seems like Lucasfilms might be the first movie that Disney tries to alter.
Gosh, Ty, I really hope. As you know, I am a huge Star Wars fan, and I think they need to keep that direction that Disney has allowed Marvel, and just to allow the director complete freedom to do what they want. From what I've heard with these recent reshoots is they were trying to make a war movie, and I think the director might have done too good of a job of making a war movie from what I've heard, because they did a screening and the executives really liked it, but it might have been too dark of a tone for the amount of kids that will probably end up going to go see this Rogue One movie.
Star Wars is actually a really good example of the three-pronged diagnosis that we gave to the critical failure or financial failure or audience disapproval of movies in 2016, and maybe even years moving forward, because I remember whenever I was younger and they were going to release the prequel movies for Star Wars, and I was so insanely hyped that whenever the movies ended up coming out, I imagine like a lot of people, they didn't live up to what I wanted them to be. Not to say that we go into movies being entitled, but we sort of have a bit of expectation for what a movie should be and what a movie shouldn't be. When Disney ended up acquiring the rights for the Star Wars franchise, and whenever they went in to build The Force Awakens, you could argue that that movie was built just on the expectations and the desires of Star Wars fans as a whole.
The fans of the original trilogy.
Exactly. So going off of our expectations and then marketing the movie as a fun continuation of these stories that we really wanted, that led to the success that Disney was hoping for, which I think it's the third highest grossing movie ever.
Third highest grossing movie, yeah. Just shy of Titanic and, yeah, that bullshit. But whatever.
In feeding into everything we want, now they're trying to decide what we want for the next movie. I mean, I'm all for fun Star Wars movies, but Rogue One sounds genuinely interesting because they're trying to go outside of the box with it. I really hope that the studio doesn't end up kind of driving it into the ground, making it something that it has no right being.
I agree with you full-heartedly, Ty. I just hope that Disney doesn't see this too much as a kid-friendly franchise, and they allow Star Wars to move in the same capacity that Marvel is going. Because Marvel is still for the kids, but they have some pretty dark undertones within their movies. I mean, look at Civil War. It was a very fun, comedic movie, but there is some serious stuff that they tackle in that movie. So why not allow Star Wars to freely make their more mature movies as well?
I suppose the major takeaway is just because audiences had certain expectations or previous moves by studios were successful, that doesn't mean that making those same moves or marketing a movie as something it isn't will translate into financial gain or critical success for the studios.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think my personal opinion on it as well is, look, the studio hired these people to do a job. You know, they put full control in to tell a compelling story, so why not give them that freedom to tell that story? Why do they have to tamper with the creative vision of what these people wanted to make or do and try to form it into a movie that they currently think that the audience needs? Just allow them to make art.
On the other end, though, there have been some studio interventions that have panned out, but that is a discussion for a different video. I've been Ty, Mike's been Mike.
And thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for future coverage on movies, TV, video games. We are Topic Masters.